Okay, we are live. I'm
Pardon?
getting the hang of this pretty fast.
Yeah, Zoom
Okay.
is a lot easier to use than anything else.
Okay, everybody. So part one is uploading to my channel, and I will share it as soon as I see that it's complete. Just 1 second.
It takes a little bit.
Yeah. Just talk about something, Andrea. Share a win ready. Yeah. All right. So that's over there. So you can see that come up. Okay. So why don't we, so that was kind of good. I mean, so I was talking about how you go from these heavy, dense things that, well, first of all, if you go back to 2016, which was really kind of, I think, was it just me, or was that the build up to the 2016 election? I had paired with Roger Stone and Gary J. Byrne, who was the Oval Office officer that was outside the Clinton Oval Office for 8 years and saw everything firsthand that Hillary Clinton had done and Bill had done. But you know what? Of all of his philandering in the Oval Office bathroom, snorting cocaine and doing young interns, had nothing. He didn't have anything on Hillary. Hillary was a real crazy person that had been murdering people, lying, cheating, stealing, raping, pillaging, nepotistically placing her family into positions of power to the Haitian earthquake instead of going in and helping. She extorted 35 countries, $135 million into her own coffers of the Clinton Foundation, put her brother in charge of digging for gold and diamonds right in the middle of the city while children lay in shitty diapers at death's door. This was the person that the people that weren't paying attention and doing their damn homework wanted to put in the Oval Office again. Okay, I knew
200,000 missing children.
Yeah, we know where they went.
Yeah.
They went for adrenochrome labs underground. Thank you, Wuhan. That's where most of that stuff deposited, Fauci.
The pillage of Haiti is equivalent to Africa as well. But what they did in Haiti was so heinous. They robbed the people of everything.
Yeah, they collected, I think I said this wrong. I said million. They collected $147 billion for international aid to pour into Haiti. They ended up spending $90 million on a luxury resort 5-star hotel for the elite to come to see how the progress was going on the cleanup at a distance outside of the rubble. That was the only money spent. So Hillary, channeled in. So the whole point is this: we don't want to talk too long about things that seem dark or black, not for the reason that they're not true, but for the effect that they do when they begin to stir up or match. We don't want them to linger so long that they begin matching content that then shows up across the board in our health, in our own personal lives. So while we can report on these things that did happen, that are the truth, we can't let them define us in any way or think that some faction is more powerful or more important than we are, because there ain't no such thing anywhere.
Back to the original subject.
Right. Well, and I was kind of taking the long way, which I normally do, but we may be doing 3 of these in 40 minutes because, I mean, you got this mouth to go in. And I want to give you a shot. I just want to set you up good. So what I was saying about all that was, I feel like that was the wake-up call to us to go, wait, now hold on. I'll take frickin' Pee Wee Herman to be president, masturbating in a theater in Florida over Hillary frickin' Rodham Clinton and her ilk. And that is how President Trump got into office. We didn't have proof that he was going to be a good politician. I mean, not a good politician, but a good leader, govern us well, and manage the business of our country well. Well, no president ever cared about actually doing that, but Trump did. And he made every campaign promise he kept, and he added 10 more that he added in, and he kept those. He surprised us. He was the most winning president of all history. But in the process of the the fake media and the MSM seething and frothing every day, making up crap about him, really was a lot of our wake up call going, wait a second. And then we began to try to verify for ourselves as they would try to impeach him. He's doing this, he's hookers, they're pissing, he's colluding, he cheated, he rigged it. Everything they were doing, they projected as usual upon him. And that for a lot of people was a wake up call to go, hold on, something's ringing a bell here. Okay, so that for a lot of us in collective consciousness here on it, not a round earth, but a flat earth, began our rabbit hole journey, didn't it? And then we went, wait a second. Okay, we got him in there. That's cool. But now they're not leaving him alone to do his job. Imagine if they had actually supported him on the Democrat side, the unbelievable, phenomenal work that could have been done. But a resistance around every corner. It's amazing what he ended up doing. But in the process, and then it led to the 2020 where they did 1,000 cuts to a swindle with those machines. And they said, not this time. He's not going to win it this time. We're going to make sure to cover all bases this time. And they did. And they hired social media giants and tech companies like Facebook and Twitter to cancel all of his communications, the leader of the free world. And then they bought in and hired all the people in the polling stations to make sure to subvert any watchers while they abdicated falsely from Trump's pile and place him in the Biden's pile so he could get over the finish line first. So in doing all of that, we've had 6 months since then, us patriots slamming our fists down, a lot of us going, when? Come on, when? We need to correct this, right? But then in the meantime, every day. But then in the, yeah, it's hard to overview it all, but I'm trying to do his best because it does lead to Tartaria and it does lead to flat earth. So this is my best thing. A furry creature that's really kind all day long will bite the hell out of you if you corner it and terrorize it enough. Even the mildest, meekest animal will do that. And the Democrats are cornered and they're out of time. The elite, all of the children, the child trafficking, the Hollywood people, the stars, the jig is up. And they're yanking pivot levers now, anything left in their control. And so it's been a whack-a-mole since for the last 6 months trying to make sure that the people, the citizenry of all the countries are not harmed while we take them out. And that's been the military operation to cover that. Now in the process, you've had a lot of people go, well, hold on here, and I've been telegraphing the importance while it's all happening, why they want to control you so bad. They made their fake boogeyman virus that's never been isolated to get you to forfeit your civil liberties so that you would separate and stop talking to each other. Do you know that I don't know if it's CDC or whatever, this last summer, their guidelines for swimming pools, public swimming pools, was that you must wear a mask in the pool and underwater and only exhale your air while you're underwater. And as soon as you come up above the surface, don't ever engage anybody eye contact. Stop looking at people. Okay, so of course, it all sounds crazy, but that was officially in their mailer, in their pamphlet, online, and their websites. Do not look anyone else in the eyes, stay away from people. Because they don't want us getting together because the awakening is happening. They don't want us communicating it. They know that if we start meeting in larger and larger numbers, the jig is up. Well, guess what? The jig is up. And it's leading us to a phenomenal, the vibration is raising quickly and the information's coming and now getting through the cracks, isn't it? Well, now we're starting to get, oh my God, as recently as 1834, there was a huge mud flood. And then we're all like, wait, what? Even me, I'm like, what? I thought maybe thousands of years ago, but no. So go ahead, jump on that.
Realm.
Yeah.
Through the whole realm, all at the same time. That's why there are photos of empty cities, because everyone, well, it wasn't just the mud flood. People died in the mud flood, But the other thing that happened was a resonance, just like they're trying to do with the 5G. There was something that infected and then killed most of the people, and then the mud did the rest,
Yeah.
or the did it first, and then they finished everybody off, and all that was left was all these children because they weren't affected by it. And so that's why the population was so unintelligent, is because the children were doing the adults' work and they weren't educated. They didn't go through school.
The
They-
Rockefellers said in their official thing printed way back when, and there was David Rockefeller, and I forget who his father and his grandfather, but their motto was just enough education to fulfill the workforce and to man the factories, but not enough to explore.
Right.
And they were the only ones vetted to release all educational manuals and supplements worldwide. They got the contract because they underbid anybody else that could run printing machines. They undercut them. So nobody else was allowed to give their swindled narrative to the people.
Yeah.
Because
So
they
the
didn't
books,
want, they
everything
wanted
that's
everybody
been
to
printed-
forget.
Everything that's been printed since 1916 is suspect, because if they're lying to us, then everything that they've put in print is not the truth. And the only thing that they couldn't control, and this is yesterday, was that worldwide there was so much in already in print and photos and other things that were still in somewhere. They couldn't hide everything, and that is what is starting to come out now.
Yeah, and when we went in and we got the Pope, and since 6 months ago, the Pope has been a hologram that we have proven up in that large window balcony, because we've seen as he turns glitching and then he goes into black, because they're doing it for continuity of government, to make people, to not shock people, because there's a lot of Catholics that'd be really pissed if they thought the Pope is dead, but indeed he is. And the vast amount of gold under the Vatican has already been confiscated, and it was enormous, and we gave those numbers then, and they are amazing, and I have them in my head, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. What I'm going to talk about is the vast information of the books, the ancient books, and all of the information in the Pope's, in the Vatican's library, deep underground archives that hold everything. And every virus that's a pandemic that's ever been perpetrated upon the people, it comes about every 100 years. We had 1918 was the Spanish flu. This was before the PC culture, so you could say Spanish flu. You could say it came from Spain. Whereas this one, they said it's not China. It's not. That's misogynist. You can't. That's racist. You can't blame Chinese people. It's like it came out of China. It's trying to look at the Spanish flu. Look at Zika virus. Look at the Nile virus. Look at what do we have? Something against pigs? Swine flu? What? We all hate pigs, and so we can't call it swine flu. It was swine flu. Thank you, Barack Obama, or Barry Soetoro, actually.
They can't use
I went
words.
down 8 rabbit holes.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so every 100 years, this is where my mind goes. We get up to a certain information level, to a tipping point where they start to get close to being exposed, and then they knock us back down with a fake virus, and then they convince everybody with their swindled megaphone, because they own all the media, so that they can carry the bad news story louder than anybody else, and they debunk any other notion. They say that there is Israel, and then they get everybody that they've already placed into the offices all the way down to dog catcher in every small town to obey them, and to get their citizenry to muzzle up, which means a mask. And then half the population dies from the bacteria in the mask. And then the other half go and get vaccinated with something that's actually is the killer.
Right.
That's how they get rid of the population. Now, back the thing that took down Tartaria was, I believe, advanced technology that created the water underneath us to rise up and join with the sand that came off of the earth, and from the water from above in the firmament, and it mixed and it created these mud flows that were horrendous and covered everything. And nobody escaped. I mean, there were those that escaped, but they got to higher ground intentionally, knowing, because they were part of it.
The pictures that I was looking at yesterday showed, and this conglomeration of pictures that I was viewing, I've only watched hours of. There's 8 hours of photos, and they're from Russia. Most of them are from Russia, and it was showing in early photos the flooding, all, you know, the 20 meters of flooding up the buildings, and then showing the pictures of the aftermath and how everything was buried. And you know, of course, with that 5-hour video showing us all of the evidence was taken from some of this, and phenomenal, the wide scope of how it affected everybody and everything. And there, you know, in 2006 there was another one, I think 2017. So it wasn't just at once, but it has been happening in isolated areas since. What happens? And they're still doing this to certain areas.
Right. So I like some of the stuff that it's you know, I listen to David Weiss, and I saturate myself with everything so that I study like you. And now some of the stuff is repetitive because when he gives an interview, he's using his PowerPoint presentation in such a very, very expediently perfect way. But in so doing, of course, there's going to be a lot of redundancy, and I'm not a fan of it. But again, he's reaching new audiences, and it must be concise, the information, in a linear way, or he's feeling his host, you know, at the same time. But in so doing, it has prompted me of like, okay, not what's missing, but what does it inspire me? What is the thing to almost shore it up? Because I already know when something is true. And then it's just a matter of kind of like wandering into the territory, putting the code on, feeling it and stuff. And then I go, oh, this explains, and then it starts to fulfill itself. And I want to go to rainbows, right? Because if you see the aspects, I don't know how much of David Weiss that you've seen, but he's got this mocked up dome over this flat earth model on this table. And he takes a cell phone with the flashlight, and he puts it over the dome, and he does just a circle here, and it looks like a sun is inside the dome going around, as if our sun is external, shining through the firmament, or part of inside the firmament, not knowing how high that it goes. And that it itself is a refracted beam. Now, I love this thing that so that would explain a rainbow to me. That coming through that, the sun's rays, it's showing you the outline of the dome. Every time that you see a rainbow, it's showing you wherever that, from your perspective that you see it, it's showing you the dome. It's fantastic when you start to see it. Oh my God, Andrea, the ancient trees.
Oh, that really blew my mind.
No, we don't have any forests anymore. Actually, this is what would be considered moss on the side of like these mountains. We think they're mountains. They're not. They're the stumps of the old trees.
The plateau, every plateau that you've seen pictures of, if you look,
Montana and
how they're formed,
Arizona and New Mexico.
It is,
and then
clearly, I mean, there's a video that has, you know, trees cut, and then it shows you the mountain with the plateau, and it's exactly identical.
Yeah.
And so that's what blew my mind, was all these plateaus and mountains and the mountains they showed that the ragged, jagged tops, and they were saying that
was from the flow.
seismic event knocked those trees
Yeah,
over,
like Mount St. Helens, and
snapped them off.
it's pyrotechnic blast of and the mud flow. Remember the mud flow from Mount St. Helens? We were there
Yeah,
in 2000. I mean, 2000 in 1980.
80.
We were there. You and I were there. We had ash on our cars down in Corvallis.
Right.
Like
well,
for a month.
I remember laying in bed hearing the blast.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I was laying in bed.
I don't, but
and I remember hearing this. It was like a sonic boom.
because it never snowed in the Willamette Valley. And so one day I'm looking out the quad window from Crescent Valley High School, and I'm looking out. I was a sophomore, and I'm looking out, and I'm like, oh my God, it's snowing. It's like, no, that's ash. Don't stick your tongue out. You know, it's not good. You're not gonna like it. So yeah, that is the blast. Those huge mountains that are jagged, those are also, oh, and did you put this together as well? There aren't volcanoes.
Right.
Those are the quarried remain. That's the pile of all the stuff that they didn't take with them when they quarried out the Grand Canyon, when they scoured our plain here, and that's all of the crap that they went, no, we don't want that. We came for the zinc, for the copper, for the gold, for the diamond, for the whatever, for the crystal, for the amethyst, they came for a bunch of stuff, and they used these huge machines, and we have still shot video. And then you put that together with the notion of the giants and the cathedrals and the large doorways and the fact of how big people were. We found bones that were 2.5 meters for the femur. Just the femur was 2.5 meters. That's 8 feet long just for the femur bone.
And the Smithsonian covered it up. Remember that thing I sent you? The
Yes.
Smithsonian finally admitted that they covered up the fact, and they skewed the numbers, because they said they I can't remember how many, a few hundred giant skeletons. No, it was a few thousand.
Right.
Skeletons that they found, these mounds that they dug up and all of that. They covered it up, and they had finally admitted it, that they covered it up. So, you know, we've had giants all over. We used to.
I was looking at the video progress. It's still almost done. It's checking
It takes
something.
a while.
It does. Well, it's long. I'm used to uploading music video to my other YouTube channel that I don't speak of or talk about, because I didn't want them shutting me down when I talked about certain things, you know, so I created this DT Singleton video channel, and that's where we put our podcast. What's our time, Andrea?
I think we have about 20 minutes.
Oh, good. I think that this will work. I say that. I'm like, oh, Ron's making a cake. So I'm like, he's like, is this okay? I'm going to have mixers going. I'm like, I think it's okay. I don't really hear anything. I look up and see if something's happening up there. So, I mean, this all sounds, I totally, you know, like David Weiss was talking about how crazy he used to block people from talking about flat earth, because it was just absolutely crazy. And until you know, I think that's when the student's ready to master always mysteriously appears, and the universe doesn't squander or try. It knows the universe knows the value of easy. So it has and it knows that there's no such thing as, it knows that past, present, and future is simultaneous. So there's no rush, because it's already done. And so if you put all those things together, which is kind of hard to sort and to, you know, the universe is doing the exact same thing with us. It's baby steps, and it's being easy, and it's being gentle. And when we are fit, then we're able to receive notions and inspired ideas from further away because our antenna is up and it's clear, it's catching a signal that it couldn't hence. So when you're ruminating around down with your head down and worry and scuttle and being a gutter snipe and chasing your tail and putting one against the other and believing boogeyman stories, and now they're trying to divide and race and mask and unmask and vax and unvax, and if you can parties and pull up politics and gay and straight and rich and poor and famous and not famous and peer reviewed and not peer reviewed, and I mean, you name it. They would love to have 1,000 cuts to a swindle where they keep us all feeling like we're separate, but we're not. And when you know that what they're doing on purpose to keep us from our soul from resonating at its zenith, and that while they can't necessarily take our soul, they can lure it away from its activation of power. And in so doing, collectively, they win by our sheer attention to their myth and to their extorted, swindled narrative. If we decide that there's something to fear, then there's something to fear. But if we decide there's nothing to fear, then they dissolve. Then they can't win. There's nothing that we have to do more than just go inside and just find peace and love. And where we go back into that place, that sounds like I'm like from the 70s and I get flowers in my hair and I'm smoking a bong and everybody gets small and we're going out to the field. Everything's groovy, baby, nothing to look at here. Well, there's a lot of value in that, actually, as it turns out.
I had that same thought.
John Lennon, yeah, John Lennon, imagine there's no heaven, or let it be, let it be, let it be, oh, let it be. Speaking words of wisdom, let it be, let it be. Perfect. I mean, that's really, you know, if we can get there and know the value of turning off our boxes. Now, I know that we all love our tech, and I've got the best tech in the world, as good as anybody else at any price point. But I use it like a laser focus for topics. I don't let it handle me. I don't let the infiltration of propaganda wash over me on a daily basis, oblivious to the effect that it's having on me. No, it's off right now. When it goes back on, I have smart TV things and choices that I go to, YouTube video channels, things, expertise, information, Tartarian, mud floods, cathedrals, sound resonance, sacred geometry. I empower myself with it. I use the tool for the benefit of all the things that help me think better, feel better, know more, expand my mind, my consciousness, and then I bring all of that stuff. I regurgitate what I think is the purest form of that out. Of course, I have dissenting criteria, so with anything, you gotta recognize bullshit when you hear it or know it, you know.
Well, that's why 3 years ago I stopped watching the news because when I lived in Long Beach, in California, and down there it was the riots, and on the news every night somebody died, and there was shooting and violence and all that kind of thing. And when I got home, I slowly you never used to hear about that kind of stuff in Oregon. I mean,
no, back in the day it was like, I mean,
was a happy place, and
everybody was kicking a hacky sack around, and
it just was quiet, and
it was raining. It was raining.
3 years ago. Oh my gosh, somebody's dying every day in Portland, and they're putting it on the news, and they're showing the graphic, and they're all this and this gang and that gang, and I finally went, I'm sick of listening to bad news, so I turned it off, and I stopped listening to the news, which put me in a place to
be available. You had room. You had, yeah. You had
red pill.
You had right. Well, you had intentionally created a gap or a space that wasn't previously available for new to come in, new notions to enter, because you were filled up. But when you stop allowing the input to, because naturally the universe will empty you of all the crap that you willingly participate in. If you just take a break from it for a little bit, your vibration immediately begins to restore. And then the restoration.
Year and a half ago, I canceled Netflix, Hulu, all the, streaming, because I didn't have cable. All I had was the internet. And so I canceled all this other crap and pursued those things that I wanted to find out about. And then the text came in from you to my mom, and we went from there.
Serendipity, synchronicity, right? Because we were ready, and
I was prepared by the universe to hear the truth. And on top of that, looking back, 23, I just had this conversation with my mom. When I was 23, I cried out to God and I said, I'm so sick of this. I want the truth. I want to know what the truth is. Bring me the truth. And it's taken 20 plus years for that truth to come.
Right.
But it's come.
Yeah. And I mean, it also goes hand in hand with my book still. You Are a God, which, I sent David the link because he's like, who are you? And I just kind of, it's really interesting when somebody says that, because you want to, because he's out there. He's willingly put himself, put himself out there, and you're going to have people that masquerade as something. And then, well, although I will say that David Weiss doesn't, I'm not the attraction for his model, for his interviews and stuff that he does, more than the guy that's really a sphere adamant, and he is there to prove him wrong. And so that's very courageous of David Weiss's whole demeanor, and his comfortableness and his centeredness, is he's not looking to preach to the choir. He actually puts himself right in the fray. So knowing that, I was kind of surprised that he took my offer. But maybe what he doesn't know is that it's a mastermind alliance. Maybe he felt that. Maybe he does know that. I'm not saying that he is not available for that. But while it would seem as if he's going to join me and we're just going to be agreeing with each other, it's so much more than that. It's the whole is better than the sum of its parts type thing. And I think that we're both going to produce a baby, if you will, or a byproduct that will surprise and shock and delight everybody, even more than like what you and I do, perhaps with the bouncing, the throwing the ball back and forth. The ball, throwing the flat plane back and forth. What?
The frisbee.
The frisbee, yeah. Well, and it's really funny, some of the stuff that, I mean, God, how are we David and I gonna keep it down to an hour? It's gonna have to be a series. But anyways, enough about that. Content. So, I feel like I'm like a phoenix from the ashes, if you will, but the mud in this case, I've come out of the primordial soup, and I'm fighting for everybody that was swindled, that their whole life and their families and their camps and things, unknowing to them, they were covered in all of their organs, and their passageways were all infiltrated with this thick mud, and they were gone. And I feel like I almost imperatively now, I feel a little bit adamant about it actually, but I know the benefit of not going crazy and dark in the adamancy, but I do feel an adamant in an righteous indignative way, that I do what I can to bring it to bear, to let people know just as early as 187 years ago, we're at the height of our power here on Earth in Tartaria. And we had free energy. Everybody was free. There was no money and there was no rich or poor. We all had unlimited access to everything. And the systems have been intentionally covered up to keep to make us slaves and prisoners again.
Yeah, the narrative that we started from monkeys and evolved.
We grew legs as a fish and came up on the land, and yeah, and all of that would be impossible because apes and fish and everything else is simultaneously happening in our life. We can source them easily. We can just go and find a monkey and stuff, and that's supposed to be who. No. So and not just some of us decided to become human, like, oh, I'll become a sentient being. No, I want to stay over here and eat my own poo. You know, it just didn't happen like that. So anyways, they would love to do that, but they also, when Colonel Admiral Byrd came back from his trip, his flight to over Antarctica, and came back and he gave a live television interview, and it was in black and white. So I'm assuming it's late 50s, early 60s. Oh, it was 1957, actually. It just came back in my head. That as early as the next year, he said that there was unlimited resources in a land larger than North America. That had and immediately the elite drew up their plans, to their charters, to make a treaty that nobody else could go there because the penguins, and out of all senses of, you know, preservation, well, that was the cover. And literally they knew for sure. And to stop the people in the public that had witnessed that airing of that show, to stop any quandary or queries or curiosities of any sort, bam, the space agency started. NASA was created right at that moment to go, don't look over there, look up there. We're going to go to the moon, everybody. Everybody has seen the moon. We're going to go to the moon, everybody. Everybody's seen the moon. Remember the moon? We're going to go to the moon. Forget Antarctica. It's nothing. It's a huge, that was a one-off. Because I mean, that rippled really quickly. About people went, what? There's a whole continent that we're not allowed to, that, and people, actually around that time, people started to actually gather their own organizations, and they were going to start making their own treks there. And they were stopped. And that was the beginning of, not so fast, don't go there. Because then the whole thing is, the cat's out of the bag.
The charter that was made, after the charter was made, then another 125 countries joined it.
Yeah, so yeah,
it's almost
and it's allegedly up in 1941, where you can't even question it. But like everything else, they'll kick that can down the road, as we say. And like David says, I'll add 60 to it. You know, that was another 60 years. It's kind of like 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Oh, by the way, I want to be reminded to make this joke to David. To flatten the curve. That's an interesting expression, Fauci. To flatten the curve. How long has it taken for us to flatten the curve of the heliocentric model and bring us into the knowledge of flat Earth? Have we flattened the curve? I think we flattened the curve, right? And there's a Bitcoin in it from David, if you can unflatten the curve and go back into the curve again. That's an interesting little, I like those things. Yeah, it took us 2 weeks to flatten the curve. A year and a half later, 18 months now we're going back, and we're just gone back into school year. And now, you know, oh boy, you know, there's a new variant, and now there's a new variant, and now there's a new variant. Hey, everybody run. Bigfoot's son is rampaging the forest. He's killing everybody. Stay away from the forest. It's like, you first have to give a lot of credence to Bigfoot for him to ever even had a son. So being worried about his son, if you never believed in Bigfoot in the first place, by the way, they never isolated COVID. So that's where I'm going with a variant. How can you have a variant of something that never was?
Well, and like Kate Brown, her announcement, Kate Brown saying that the hospitals were overrun and they were lining patients.
Yeah, the nurses had time to do Titanic viral videos on the gurneys, but people were dying. But we're doing musical reviews in the hallways.
But I mean, recently in the last week, we've been locked with masks because of this Delta variant.
Yeah.
And it's mind-boggling to me that
It's
if
so obvious.
many people sick in hospital, you'd be hearing about it. The only reason we heard about it was because of her announcement. It wasn't anywhere else. And for her to talk like OHSU, which is the biggest hospital in Portland, to be overrun and gurneys in the hallway, that's ridiculous. It is utterly ridiculous, because the only people that are getting sick are the ones that have received the, in the arm. That's who's getting sick, and or the people that have been around, gotten this jab, that have had that what do they call it, shedding, and that they have received the protein that way.
Part 1 was just published, and the link and the link was shared to the Patriot Party. Actually, I could have done it quicker, as it turns out. I was believing what they were saying, and really all they wanted me to know, all they wanted to ask me was, yeah, it's right there. All they wanted to ask me was, did I want it private, public, or whatever. So anyways.
So, okay, now.
We're about done. How many minutes do we have?
3 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
So,
so we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, bye, and start our next.
You want to do one more?
Sure.
Okay, we'll do one more.
Haven't heard anything yet.
Well, Ron, anyways, no, I think I got a numerological, like a zapping serendipitous synchronicity thing telling me that I think one more is good, because I just had a number flash up at 1:07 p.m. here on the East Coast, and that is this symbolic power number for me. I guess that means that we're going to go again. Let me cut it off here, and we'll be right back for part 3. Okay, here we go.